Welcome all to Commonwealth's art show reception and senior speeches. My own aesthetic contribution tonight is to match the vase of flowers. But as I've walked around our building, I've been dazzled and inspired and transported by the artwork on our walls and shelves. It spans an impressive range of technique and subject matter and deep feeling, all produced by our young artists. I salute our students and want to particularly thank their teachers, Kelsey Miller for drawing, painting, and printmaking, Michael Bonadillo and Kyla Toomey for ceramics and sculpture, and Darren Corman, who teaches film and digital photography. In addition to being skilled, patient, encouraging, creative teachers, each of them are artists in their own right and bring their own practice into our classrooms. The arts have been central to Commonwealth since our earliest days. Charles Merrill, our founder, took our students to the Boston Symphony Orchestra and to theater performances around the city. His own watercolors can be found on our walls, and I'm told that when he had a bad day, he would just take himself to the galleries on Newbury Street. His love of the arts and his sense that the arts were central to what it meant to be educated and human have taken deep root here. Tonight we celebrate the visual arts, but throughout the year, many different art forms weave their way into our daily lives at Commonwealth. Our ears are delighted by our chorus, chorale, and orchestra, led by music teacher David Hodgkins. In 2 weeks, our jazz musicians will hold their concert under the direction of the ever groovy Mark White. And throughout the year, we've been moved by theatrical performances nurtured by Susan Thompson. We have also basked in the beauty of poetry readings. What is April? Poetry. Shakespeare monologues, and the stories and poems from our creative writing class taught by Aaron Kerner. The arts allow us to tap into different parts of our minds and our hearts and our senses. Instead of seeking a right answer or analysis backed by evidence, we explore an untrodden path, not fully sure where it will take us. We push ourselves to truly see color, line, shape, and texture. We develop our sense of what could be and tap into parts of our beings we haven't met before. I could go on, but I know you're eager to hear our featured speakers and our musician. All 5 of these seniors have engaged with one or multiple art forms while students here, and they'll share some of their reflections about their time at Commonwealth. I've had the pleasure of teaching all our seniors this year, and they are, to a person, inquisitive, inclusive, and interesting. I wish we could hear from all of them, but I know you will be delighted to hear from some of them. Let me begin by introducing Will Washko, who will be followed by Ayala Malcolm. Milana Živanović will play a piece on guitar for us, followed by speeches from Charlie Zhong and Ella Sherry. Please extend your warmest welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Like in the back? It's terrible. Too close?
It's very hot, yeah.
Oh, good. All right. Well, like Ms. Borman said, I'm Will Washko. And over the years, over the past couple months, I've been thinking back on my time at Commonwealth. And when I think about the things that I'll miss at Commonwealth, there are several things which immediately come to mind. The close student-teacher relationships, the location, and the people here are all wonderful. But one thing that I keep coming back to is Hancock and the meals there. To be clear, I will not miss the food itself. Most of what I have eaten over the years is best left in New Hampshire and Rhode Island. But I will miss the act of preparing and watching people prepare breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm honestly not sure why. Food in Hancock is not a relaxing experience. Parents, let me paint a picture for you. Imagine walking into your kitchen at 5 in the morning. You're tired, strung out, and are wishing you were just about anywhere else. Now imagine seeing your child, who has never cooked before, trying to dice an onion, gripping it like an apple knife, slowly growing closer and closer to their hand. Maybe they're putting both hands on the knife and trying to guillotine it. Now imagine seeing 15 more of those children, all mutilating their own onions in horrifyingly creative ways. It's at this point that I would like to issue a disclaimer. The Commonwealth School does not condone unsafe handling of knives and encourages safe practice in the kitchen. Get that out of the way. It's still terrifying, though, and the stress begins before you even get in the kitchen. Planning one's meal for Hancock is an endeavor worthy of a Homeric epic. There are the requisite staggering highs and devastating lows, all of which I have felt during my time as a head chef. Meals often begin as elaborate multi-course banquets. There could be a first course of julienne vegetables with carrots, cucumbers, and 4 kinds of spinach, all tossed in a balsamic vinaigrette. Side dishes of buttery potato puree and fresh baked bread would line the tables. Perhaps the main course would be a rack of lamb, gently spiced and slow roasted to perfection over a period of several days. Dessert would be something to remember. Handmade croissants with chocolate ganache for dipping. And then reality sets in. The school will not pay for salmon fillets or duck breast or saffron. And the price slashing begins. Eggs Benedict becomes scrambled eggs. Shakshuka becomes tomato sauce. And chicken stays chicken. There's not much they can change there. But you've planned for all that. And you're left with a good, solid, albeit bare meal. But there's a second hurdle. You see, the first challenge to your dream of a wonderful meal at Hancock is a bureaucratic effort. It's a regimented cost-cutting measure. It's troublesome, but it's predictable. But once you get there, it's a whole nother ballgame. Do you remember those kids from earlier? Well, knives aren't the only things they don't know how to use. Many of them also don't know how to use a stove, or crack an egg, or use a broom, much less measure ingredients for your blueberry muffins. So your meals suffer even more there. If you're lucky, you make something edible. And if you're not on top of your game, well, there's always lunch. Like I said, I won't miss the food from Hancock, but I think I have an idea of why I'll miss cooking it. Food at Hancock deeply reflects the community and the sense of collective responsibility which we have all built together. If we make a mistake, we all face the consequences. We handle knives unsafely as a community. We risk first and second degree burns as a community, and we risk food poisoning at every meal as a community. And it's terrifying. As a quick side note to all future head chefs in the room, please do not cook pork. Half the school can't eat it, and the other half cannot tell when it is done cooking. And the experience is stressful and rage-inducing, but ultimately it's a wonderful and incredibly unique opportunity to learn and to grow. And it's an opportunity which I think reflects Commonwealth and reflects it very well. Waking up at 5 in the morning on your very first Hancock to cook breakfast for 200 people you barely know, that is putting yourself out there. And it's not just at Hancock where students are put out of their comfort zones. Classes here are challenging and fast-paced. there's lots of homework, and there's a level of independence that most people don't get until they go away to college. And it's hard, but it's worth it. And over the years, I have truly come to believe that putting yourself out there and trying things that may seem scary is the best and really the only path to personal growth. There's been plenty of things that have made me uncomfortable during my time here. One of them is jazz solos. I'm in the jazz band, and at the end of the year, I have to stand up and improvise a solo over one of our pieces. I have to follow chord changes, listen to the rest of the band, all while I stare down our band director, Mr. White. It's terrifying. But I have never regretted doing a solo, no matter how bad I think it sounded or how awful I felt going into it, because I get more confident and more comfortable every single time I do it. And lastly, one of the most discomforting things I faced during my time at Commonwealth was this. Public speaking. If you had asked me freshman year what my greatest fear was, it would have been this. Speaking to a crowd of people, many of whom I've never met before. But I forced myself out of my comfort zone. And in 10th grade, I joined Model UN to try and face my fear of public speaking, and I hated it. It was awful. But something told me to push forward. And I did. I kept doing conferences, and little by little, piece by piece, I started to enjoy it. I didn't really believe it at first. How could I possibly enjoy making off-the-cuff speeches about complex and controversial topics? But I did. I really did. And I kept active in the club over the years. And I rose to the ranks to become the president, which was really shocking to me. And I'm just about finished. But there's one final thing I'd like to say to you all. If you take just one thing from this speech, it would be this. Try new things, try hard things, face your fears, and never be afraid of being judged for it. Because you can never know what you might end up doing or who you may become. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ayala, and I would like to begin my speech by saying I was introduced to this poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, this year in English by Mr. Kerner. Although the author, T.S. Eliot, and I have almost nothing in common, this modernist stream of consciousness poem really resonated with me. T.S. Eliot by no means lived a life similar to mine. He came from a wealthy family and was interested in literature for the majority of his life. Poetry, specifically. I have no interest in poetry. Pottery, that, little anagram, but, never, ever poetry. The few times I've ever even liked a poem, it was because I just didn't know why. But part of me likes to think that if T.S. Eliot went to Commonwealth, he would have written the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock much, much earlier in life. One of the most memorable lines in the poem, it's "The ladies come and go," talking of Michelangelo. I think it captures a very significant part of my experience here at Commonwealth. Being a person who has almost nothing in common with the people around them can be really hard. And it was really hard for the first 14 years of my life before Commonwealth. But feeling insignificant or like you're not even an equivalent to the people around you is even harder. But the feelings of alienation and inadequacy can run rampant in a school like this one, where prestige and being the top is something that we prioritize a lot. And I chose a school for the same reason as most people here. I wanted a challenge. I wanted to be challenged. But I don't think enough people talk about the pain of finding exactly what you were looking for. As a senior at Commonwealth, I found that I'm asked the same question a lot of the time. I've gotten, how do you feel about your time at Commonwealth? Would you recommend it to anyone like you? And my personal favorite being, do you have any regrets about being a Commonwealth student? And honestly, the complete honest answer to that is no. Of course I don't. I love being a Commonwealth student. I'm gonna be honest, I love it here. I got a fast pass to the real world. All of the experiences that I've had here, all the people that I've met have really prepared me for the spaces that I want to be in my life. I'm going to be around Commonwealth students for the rest of my life. I'm going to be around incredibly intelligent people who may or may not have come from higher socioeconomic backgrounds, people who have different interests and views, and unfortunately, maybe some people who weren't exposed to others with diverse backgrounds until much later in their lives. But because I go here, I got the privilege of really understanding everyone around me. I now have 18 years of getting to know people who look and act like me and people who don't. And all of the people that I've met throughout my life, including everyone at my old schools, everyone now, they've been major factors in building my cultural competence and empathy, two values that I value very, very dearly and I believe make me an amazingly well-rounded being. Even now, repurposing a classic poem as an analogy is a very Commonwealth thing to do, and it's probably the best testimony to show how Commonwealth has continued to build me to be the curious, creative, and open-minded person that I've always been. And being in such a unique space created me to be a very unique individual. And over the years, it was hard. It took me 4 years and up until today to realize that individuality is an asset, and I've come to value it over my time here, over any feelings of inadequacy that I may have had from my first day to yesterday. So to J. Alfred Prufrock, I too feel the isolation of a person who lives in an advanced modern world and grieves all that comes with it. I feel the indecisive paralysis of being a human. I've lived in uncertain times, in an uncommon school, in an unfair world. The day of freshman orientation, through undeserted streets, the upscale retreats of restless people in lavish restaurants with fresh-caught oysters, the streets of Boston that, if you're a tourist, follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent. And no, in your sophomore year, there will not be time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate, nor will there be a time for you and me to figure out the geometry. And time yet for 100 indecisions about what winter sport to do, and for 100 visions and revisions of your U.S. History weekly paragraph before the taking of a mini bagel and Cheerios at recess. In the room, students come and go, talking not of Michelangelo, but of Geometry Dash and the new long lines of the Raising Cane's on Boylston Street. To my friends then, let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, featuring the double rainbow of fall Hancock. I grow old, I grow old. I shall wear the bottom of my jeans rolled. Shall I part my hair in the middle? Do I dare eat a peach? I shall wear my Brandy Melville white linen pants and walk upon the beach. I've heard the Commonwealth mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. We've lingered in the chambers of the Dartmouth lobby by sea-girls wreathed with clear tape and a blue wig, till the first period bell wakes us and we drown. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my slightly artistic rendition of 4 vital years summed up into a single speech. I want to leave this message within your reach. My time with everyone, including faculty and staff, has been an amazing experience, more than one can ask. While there have been many ups and downs and moments where I felt like I've been the only one in certain crowds where we've had experiences alike, times where I've been late because of Mass Turnpike, there is no other experience I would have wished to survive other than with the class of 2 in year 5. Thank you. will be playing Prelude No. 1 by Villa-Lobos for you all. Or I will once I tune this.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie John. Yeah. So, as I stand in front of all of Commonwealth today, I'm reminded of the many times I've stood in front of those admission panel events. If you've done any of those admission events before, you know that when you introduce yourself, you always talk about why you chose Commonwealth. For me, I always say, the reason I chose Commonwealth was my close relationships with teachers. And indeed, I got to know some teachers really well at Commonwealth. I've ran into some of you at the symphony. I've gotten coffee with some of you in Harvard Square. I've also been to one of your house many times and ate a lot of food from your fridge. But almost every teacher I've had here, all of you have completely changed me as a person. But here's the secret. In 8th grade, I chose Commonwealth for one reason only, and it wasn't that close relationship with the teachers. Nor was it the beautiful Back Bay and the Commonwealth Mall outside, nor was it the intellectual communities and all of my friends I've made at Commonwealth. In 8th grade, I chose Commonwealth for one reason only, and it was the only school I got into. In 8th grade, I really wanted to go to boarding school, but almost as soon as I became part of Commonwealth in 9th grade, I realized Commonwealth is the place for me. And looking back now, I'm really grateful that Commonwealth was the only school that accepted me. So what is it about Commonwealth that's so special for me? As some of you might know, I do this thing called music composition. And I started doing that in 8th grade, really. In 8th grade, I had written about a piece or two. What were the pieces like? If you ask me, they were sort of off-brand Schubert or Chopin, if you know who they are. And I really wasn't sure if composition was just a middle school hobby or if there was anything more than that. And when I applied to Commonwealth, I emailed 2 of my pieces I've written to the music director here, Mr. Hodgkins. Mr. Hodgkins wrote back to me saying, this is actually about a month and a half after I wrote my email. He wrote back saying, I particularly enjoyed the first piece. I sent him 2 pieces. I hope we get a chance to talk about them in greater detail someday. And you would think that, as my advisor for all my 4 years at Commonwealth, Mr. Hodgkins and I would talk about those pieces. But no, we did not. But it was a different reason that we didn't talk about those pieces. That's because at Commonwealth, something about the community here allowed me to keep writing music. And instead of talking about music I've written in the past, we were creating music together. We were talking about the music that I'm going to write next. At Commonwealth, composing became not just a middle school hobby, it became something real, and something I'm willing to affiliate myself with. So here comes the big question. Why do I write music? But to be honest with you, I don't think that question gets us anywhere. In our English classes, we ask the question, why do we write an essay? And the expected answer is, you write an essay to understand a topic better. But really, the more honest answer is, I don't want to fail my English class. In the same way, to say that I write music to understand something better only really gets half of the picture. You might say that I write music because I enjoy it. Yes, I have fun when I'm writing, but when it's so late at night and I'm editing a piece right before a big deadline, cups of coffee after coffee, it doesn't quite make sense to say I compose because it's fun. I think a more helpful question is, for whom do I write music? At your Commonwealth English class, if you were asked the question, for whom do I write this essay, you could say, I'm writing this essay for myself. But more often, I'm writing this essay for my teacher. Or in the case of colleges, I'm writing this essay for the admissions officer. But for me, there isn't a teacher out there insisting I compose a piece of music every week, nor are college admissions looking at the quality of my music. So for whom am I writing? In my junior year, I wrote this piece, Only When the Clock Stops, for our very own chorale ensemble. Some of you here sung in that and played in that. And you guys did a wonderful job last year at the spring concert. So who did I write that piece for? Well, perhaps I wrote it for Mr. Sherry, who I knew just loved singing those repetitive high tenor lines in the piece. Maybe it was for Miss Becker, who I knew wasn't the biggest fan of contemporary music. and I wanted to convince her otherwise. Maybe I wrote the piece for the English teachers in the audience who have also read my inspiration behind the work, which was a book by William Faulkner, and I wanted to make sure I was doing Faulkner justice in that piece. Maybe I wrote the piece for the few concert goers in the audience, expecting to hear a masterfully manipulated series of composition techniques. Or maybe I wrote it for the many people in the audience who's never heard a violin play pitchless sounds before. Really, I wrote only when the clock stops for the musicians and for the audience. And for me, writing music is always about the people who experience the music. I write music because I know that there's somebody out there listening. Whether it's the concert goer who paid hundreds of dollars for the orchestral premiere of your piece, or the competition judge who's getting paid to judge your work, or the friend that's getting the 10th text message from you saying, "Hey bro, check out those fire lyrics." In the same way, I ask myself, why am I writing this speech right now? Not just because Ms. Borman asked me to write the speech, but because I know that there are people in this audience listening. I know that some people are probably fighting their urge to pull out their phones and play Block Blast, but they know that it's not acceptable right now, and they're listening to me, hopefully. I know that Ms. Brewster, having been my college essay advisor, has already read my takes on music a million times already, but still, I think she's listening. Lastly, I trust that my future self will listen back to this speech, reminiscing about the times at Commonwealth. As long as there's somebody listening, I'll keep writing. And at Commonwealth, the lesson I learned is that somebody is always listening. People are listening even if you're not in the spotlight. From the stare that Mr. Hodgkins gives you when you try to hide yourself from after coming in at the wrong cue, to the look that Mr. Spalding gives you when you hand in your physics test with half of the questions empty, clearly having not spent enough time studying. At Commonwealth, people really know you. And there's always somebody out there looking at the work you're doing. When somebody's listening, you keep writing. So thank you all for listening to me. I want to thank Ms. Budding, who helped me edit this speech. And because without all of you who listened to me, listened to the work I did, I really wouldn't be the person I am today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ella. My Commonwealth career has been very different than most. My dad has been a teacher here since before I was born, and Commonwealth is among my first memories. I remember the excitement every fall and spring of leaving school early on a Friday to drive up into the woods of Maine. My friends would ask why I was leaving, and I would say it was for something called Hancock. I remember the chatter of the long meal lines and the colorful lights of the talent show. I remember every winter and every spring, my dad would get dressed up in a suit and we'd take the tee to watch him sing. I always said I could hear his voice above all the others. I remember the couch in his office and the struggle of getting a good Wi-Fi connection on the 5th floor to watch a movie or play a game. I've watched Commonwealth students take on BUA a few blocks away from my house, and I've doodled on the whiteboards in every room. I remember leaving a trail of misshapen 3D cubes in every room as I followed my dad from class to class. I've watched this community for a long time, and I've grown up in it. When I officially entered Commonwealth, the school felt small. I quickly felt like I was seeing the same people in every class and around every corner. In a way, I think this was amplified for me because I never really considered Commonwealth smallness when applying. Growing up, it never felt small. I never understood how my dad could know the names of every single student, while I could barely remember the names of more than one. But when I finally came to Commonwealth after COVID, suddenly the mysteries, like what was on the 3rd and 4th floors and what actually happened at recess, were revealed. The masses of students towering over me all had names, and I was no longer impervious to the bells that rang throughout the day. And for a moment, Commonwealth lost the depth and intrigue that my 7-year-old mind had created. It took me some time to find that depth again, and it came from a place of comfort, my beginner ceramics class. It was sometime in early winter, probably mid to late November, and I was still working on my Halloween pumpkin. I remember the intense focus I had. Every coil was intentional, every motion was calculated, and I had a clear vision, a deliberate process, and it intrigued me. I spent every class period working intensely, slowly, and deliberately. I looked forward to Tuesdays and Fridays when I could go up to the 5th floor and just make something, without having to worry about homework or if I was wasting a study hall. It was that intense focus and passion that was ignited in me once again after I watched the winter concert. I hadn't joined the orchestra that fall because I had never played piano with another person, and it had been almost 2 years since I had played in my middle school band. I was worried I wouldn't be able to keep up with all the talented players I had grown up watching. But when I listened to their music and watched how interconnected and intentional they were, I realized that COVID had made me forget how much I loved playing with people. It was soon after that I asked to join the orchestra, knowing that I already had that period free. When I played on that first day, I could barely hold my flute straight, convinced I had made a mistake. But as soon as we started playing, I could feel the intention behind the music, that same intention that I found 6 floors up in the ceramics studio. I found that intention, dedication, and detail elsewhere. I found it in the details behind intricate biological processes. I found it in the precision in my chamber music. I find it in the dedication behind my ceramics paintings, and I find it in the purposeful formatting of research paper footnotes. I find it in the small details in a poem or the workings behind math formulas. As my interest in the things around me and in front of me deepened, Commonwealth grew. The more I realized I could be doing, the more I could do. This pushed me to go after projects I wanted to pursue. I joined more chamber groups and played music I had never played before with my friends. I created my own creative writing projects and started experimenting with new forms in ceramics. The Commonwealth that my 7-year-old mind had created had resurfaced. Except it was no longer a building with mysterious hallways and closed doors, but a place of innovation and creativity, filled with people who want to make things, learn things, and work on something new. My time at Commonwealth has taught me the value of working intently, meticulously, and passionately, but especially it has taught me to feed off the passion of the people around me. And while I hope to keep that 7-year-old mind with me, the one that found depth and intrigue in the seemingly simple things around me, I hope to also keep the mind that my experiences at Commonwealth has helped create. I hope to keep the passion and the depth of this place that stems not only from this building and our fun traditions, our trips and our concerts, but from our people. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming. I especially want to thank all of the artists who've shown work tonight, truly spectacular, and all of the artists who've shown work to us throughout the year. I will say 2 things in closing. One is, it is indeed a school night. So we will visit, but also make our way out. And for those of you willing and able, what is the last thing I typically say? Thank you all.